April 7, 1945, 12:23 hours, 120 miles southwest of Kyushu, Japan. Ensign Mitsuru Yoshida stood on the signal bridge of Battleship Yamato, watching something through the afternoon haze that made no sense according to everything he understood about naval warfare and the relationship between surface ships and aircraft. American carrier aircraft, hundreds of them, circled Yamato like wolves surrounding wounded prey, attacking in coordinated waves that came from every direction simultaneously. Dive bombers screamed down from 12,000 feet, releasing bombs that fell toward Yamato's massive deck. Torpedo bombers skimmed across wave tops, launching torpedoes that left white wakes streaking toward the ship's hull. Fighters strafed the superstructure with machine gun fire that ricocheted off armor plating, creating spark showers that looked like fireworks. Yamato's main battery, 9 18.1-inch guns housed in 3 massive turrets, traversed slowly, attempting to engage aircraft with shells designed to destroy enemy battleships at ranges exceeding 20 miles. The guns fired massive 3,200-pound projectiles launched with force that made the entire 72,000-ton ship shudder, but the shells arced harmlessly into empty ocean. Aircraft were too fast, too maneuverable, too numerous. The most powerful battleship guns ever constructed were useless against the swarms of carrier aircraft attacking from all directions. Yoshida had watched Yamato's construction at Kure Naval Arsenal. He had witnessed her launch in August 1940 when she slid into the water as the largest, most powerful battleship ever built. He had served aboard her during 3 years of war, watching her dominate every engagement through sheer firepower and armor protection that made her seem invincible. He had believed, as all Yamato's crew believed, that this ship represented Japanese naval superiority embodied in steel. But now, watching American aircraft attack with impunity while Yamato's guns fired uselessly at targets they couldn't hit, Yoshida understood something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Yamato represented obsolete warfare philosophy. She was designed to fight surface battles that would never happen, built to destroy enemy battleships with guns that exceeded anything America possessed. Armored to survive shells from enemy battleships that would never fire at her. Everything about Yamato's design assumed naval warfare would be decided by surface ships exchanging fire at long range. But that warfare had ended at Pearl Harbor when Japanese carrier aircraft demonstrated that aircraft could sink battleships before surface ships even made visual contact. Think about that moment. The most powerful battleship ever constructed, representing 5 years of design, 3 years of construction, billions of yen in resources, was being destroyed by aircraft launched from carriers positioned beyond Yamato's gun range. Every design choice that made Yamato supreme against surface ships made her vulnerable against aircraft. Her massive guns couldn't elevate high enough to hit aircraft effectively. Her thick armor was positioned to stop shells hitting horizontally, not bombs falling vertically or torpedoes striking below waterline. Her enormous size made her impossible to maneuver quickly when torpedoes approached. Everything that made her powerful in surface warfare made her helpless against carrier aircraft. What Yoshida didn't know as he watched the coordinated American attack was that Yamato's final sortie, Operation Tengo, had been conceived as suicide mission from the beginning. That Admiral Toyoda, who ordered the operation, knew Yamato would be destroyed, but ordered her to fight anyway, because surrendering Japan's greatest battleship without using her was psychologically unacceptable to Japanese naval leadership. That Yamato carried only enough fuel for one-way voyage to Okinawa, where she was supposed to beach herself and fight a stationary fortress until destroyed. That everyone aboard knew they were sailing to their deaths but sailed anyway because orders required it, and Japanese naval tradition demanded dying rather than surrendering unused. What Yoshida didn't know was that within 30 minutes, just 30 minutes from this moment, Yamato would capsize and sink, taking 2,498 of her 2,700 crew with her to the bottom. That her death would mark the end of battleship era and final proof that carrier aircraft had rendered surface ships obsolete. That historians would remember April 7, 1945, as the day when last battleship sortie demonstrated definitively that surface ships couldn't survive against carrier aircraft, no matter how powerful their guns or thick their armor. What Yoshida didn't know was that American carrier task force attacking Yamato included 12 aircraft carriers launching 386 aircraft in coordinated strikes that overwhelmed Japanese defenses through sheer numbers and tactical coordination Japanese forces couldn't match. That American pilots were executing attacks developed through 3 years of combat experience that taught them exactly how to destroy heavily armored warships efficiently. That every torpedo and bomb hit was being plotted by American attack coordinators, ensuring damage accumulated systematically until Yamato capsized from flooding Japanese damage control couldn't contain. What Yoshida didn't know was that 40 years later, in 1985, he would publish memoir titled Requiem for Battleship Yamato, describing his experiences during the ship's final battle. That his memoir would include assessment stating, Yamato's destruction proved that Japanese naval strategy was obsolete before we even finished building her. We built the ultimate battleship for war that ended at Pearl Harbor. American carriers demonstrated that aircraft could sink any surface ship regardless of armor or firepower. Yamato's guns were useless against aircraft. Her armor couldn't stop torpedoes. Her death proved that era of battleship supremacy had ended. We just refused to accept it until too late. What Yoshida didn't know was that survivors like himself, 276 men rescued from thousands who died, would spend rest of their lives processing psychological trauma of watching Japan's most powerful warship destroyed by weapon system. Japanese strategists had failed to understand, even though Japan had pioneered carrier aviation and used it devastatingly at Pearl Harbor. That, the cognitive dissonance of understanding intellectually that carriers had made battleships obsolete while emotionally believing in Yamato's invincibility, would haunt survivors who witnessed both truths simultaneously as Yamato burned and capsized around them. What Yoshida didn't know was that American pilots attacking Yamato would describe the battle as disturbingly easy in their after-action reports. That, despite Yamato's massive size and powerful anti-aircraft guns, coordinated carrier aircraft attacks overwhelmed her defenses within minutes. That American losses would total only 10 aircraft from 386 launched, a 2.6% loss rate considered acceptable for attacking the most heavily defended target in Japanese Navy. That this exchange ratio, 10 aircraft for 1 battleship plus 9 escort ships, would prove definitively that carrier aircraft could destroy surface fleets at costs that made surface warfare obsolete. What Yoshida didn't know was that Yamato's ammunition magazines contained special shells designed for shore bombardment at Okinawa, the mission she would never reach. That these shells represented last act of defiance by Japanese naval leadership, refusing to accept that battleships had no role in modern naval warfare. That ordering Yamato to steam to Okinawa and fight a stationary fortress was admission that Japanese Navy had no way to use their greatest battleship effectively because the type of warfare she was designed for would never occur. The mathematics of naval warfare were being written in torpedo wakes and bomb trajectories converging on Yamato from every direction. And those mathematics were proving something Japanese naval leadership had refused to acknowledge, that building the world's most powerful battleship in era when carriers dominated was like perfecting cavalry charges in era of machine guns. Yamato represented peak achievement in obsolete warfare. Her construction consumed resources that could have built multiple aircraft carriers. Her existence was strategic liability requiring escort ships to protect her from submarines and aircraft. Her death would demonstrate that no matter how perfectly you execute obsolete strategy, it fails against opponents who understand current warfare reality. By the time Yoshida felt Yamato shudder from torpedo hit at 12:45 hours, one of perhaps 10 torpedoes that would strike the ship in next 30 minutes, the outcome was already determined. Yamato was doomed. The battleship era was over. And Yoshida would spend rest of his life bearing witness to the day when Japan's greatest warship proved through her death that Japanese naval strategy had been obsolete since Pearl Harbor, but Japanese leadership had refused to accept it until their ultimate battleship sank beneath Pacific waves, taking 2,198 sailors and the illusion of battleship supremacy with her. April 6, 1945, 1600 hours. Meanwhile, in Yamato's wardroom, Vice Admiral Ito's final briefing to his officers, documented in testimonies from survivors compiled post-war, revealed that everyone understood Operation Tengo was suicide mission, from which return was impossible. According to survivor testimonies collected by Japanese naval historians, Ito gathered his officers at 1600 hours on April 6th, the day before Yamato's final sortie, to explain the mission. The testimony stated that Ito began by acknowledging mission was one-way voyage. Yamato carried only 2,500 tons of fuel, enough for the 340-mile voyage to Okinawa, but not enough to return. No air cover would be provided because Japanese air forces were being conserved for kamikaze operations. No support vessels beyond light escorts would accompany them because Japanese Navy possessed nothing capable of defending Yamato from American carrier aircraft. The testimonies documented Ito's explanation of mission objectives according to survivors. He stated that Yamato would steam to Okinawa, beach herself on shore, and fight as stationary fortress using her massive guns to support ground forces defending against American invasion. The testimonies noted that several officers asked how Yamato would reach Okinawa when American carrier forces controlled the seas between Japan and Okinawa. Ito reportedly responded that they would rely on darkness and weather to avoid detection until reaching the island. Most significantly, the testimonies recorded according to survivors that Ito acknowledged mission success was unlikely. One testimony stated, "Admiral Ito told us honestly that American carrier aircraft would probably find and attack us before we reached Okinawa. He said our chances of completing the mission were small, but he said we must try because allowing Yamato to remain in port without fighting was unacceptable to Japanese naval tradition. We must die fighting rather than surrender unused." The testimonies documented that after briefing, officers returned to their stations and informed their men about the mission. Ensign Yoshida's memoir, published in 1985, included account of telling his division about one-way voyage. According to his memoir, Yoshida stated, "I gathered my men and told them we were sailing to Okinawa tomorrow with no fuel to return and no air support. I told them we would probably be attacked by American carriers and that our survival chances were minimal. I expected protests or fear. Instead, my men accepted mission calmly. They understood we were sailing to our deaths." They accepted it because Japanese naval tradition required dying rather than surrendering without fighting. April 7th, 1945. 0600 hours. Ensign Yoshida's memoir described Yamato's departure from Tokuyama anchorage at 0600 hours on April 7th, 1945, with detail that captured both operational precision and emotional resignation of crew sailing to certain death. The memoir stated that weather conditions were poor, overcast skies, moderate seas, limited visibility. According to the account, these conditions were considered advantageous because cloud cover might prevent American reconnaissance aircraft from detecting the fleet during daylight transit. The memoir noted that departure proceeded smoothly, with Yamato leading formation that included light cruiser Yahagi and 8 destroyers. Yoshida's memoir described atmosphere aboard ship according to published account. He stated, "Crew performed their duties with usual discipline, but everyone understood mission was suicide. Some men wrote final letters to families, though we knew letters would sink with ship if we were destroyed before reaching Okinawa. Others made peace with death through prayer or meditation. Most simply focused on their duties because action was better than contemplating inevitable death." The memoir documented that Yamato's captain, Rear Admiral Kosaku Aruga, addressed crew over ship's communication system at 0630 hours. According to Yoshida's account, Aruga stated, "We sailed to Okinawa to support our comrades defending against American invasion. We know we face overwhelming enemy carrier forces. We know our chances of survival are small, but we are Japanese naval warriors. We do not surrender without fighting. We do not preserve our lives at cost of duty. We fight until death or victory. There is no retreat. There is no surrender. We sail to glory or grave." Yoshida's memoir stated that crew responded to captain's speech with resolve rather than fear. The memoir noted, "We had accepted death. Aruga's words merely confirmed what we already knew. We would fight until destroyed." This acceptance brought strange peace. Fear of death disappeared when death became certainty. "We could focus entirely on fighting well, regardless of outcome." April 7th, 1945, 1000 hours. Meanwhile, aboard carrier USS Essex, 280 miles northeast of Yamato's position, American Carrier Task Force was preparing strikes that would destroy Japanese surface force in coordinated attacks, demonstrating how completely carrier aircraft dominated naval warfare. Commander William Dyer's action report from Essex Air Group, dated April 9, 1945, preserved at National Archives, documented American preparation for attacking Yamato. The report stated that reconnaissance aircraft detected Japanese surface force at 0823 hours steaming southwest toward Okinawa. Initial sighting report identified Yamato plus escorts, the largest surface force Japan had sorted in months. The report documented that Task Force 58 Commander Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher ordered coordinated strikes by all available carriers. According to the report, 12 carriers would launch 386 aircraft in multiple waves, ensuring continuous attacks that would overwhelm Japanese defenses through sheer numbers and coordinated tactics that Japanese forces couldn't counter effectively. Dyer's report stated that briefing emphasized Yamato was ultimate target, but all surface ships were to be destroyed if possible. The report noted, "Intelligence indicated this was one-way suicide mission by Japanese fleet attempting to reach Okinawa for shore bombardment. Our objective was ensuring Japanese surface force never reached Okinawa." Given our numerical superiority and Japanese lack of air cover, mission appeared straightforward. Most significantly, the report documented tactical approach according to archives. American aircraft would attack in coordinated waves from multiple directions simultaneously. Torpedo bombers would target Yamato's port and starboard sides simultaneously, forcing damage control to fight flooding on both sides. Dive bombers would target superstructure and deck, disrupting anti-aircraft defenses. Fighters would strafe to suppress anti-aircraft guns. Multiple waves would ensure continuous attacks, preventing Japanese from recovering between strikes. The report stated, "Our advantages were overwhelming. We possessed numerical superiority in aircraft. We could coordinate attacks from multiple carriers simultaneously. We had 3 years of combat experience teaching us exactly how to sink heavily armored warships. Japanese surface force had no air cover and was sailing into engagement where they couldn't use their main batteries effectively. Outcome was predetermined before first aircraft launched. April 7th, 1945, 12:10 hours. Ensign Yoshida's memoir described the moment when American aircraft first appeared over Yamato with detail that captured transition from nervous anticipation to certain knowledge of doom. According to the memoir, lookouts spotted American aircraft approaching from northeast at 12:10 hours. The memoir stated, "I was on signal bridge when alarm sounded. I looked toward direction lookouts indicated and saw them, dozens of aircraft, perhaps hundreds, approaching in organized formations. They circled us at distance, maintaining altitude beyond our anti-aircraft range. They were assessing our defenses, coordinating their attack. We watched them circling like vultures around dying animal." The memoir documented Yamato's response, according to published account. Main battery turrets traversed toward aircraft attempting to engage with 18.1-inch guns that weren't designed for anti-aircraft work. According to the memoir, guns fired several salvos, but shells exploded thousands of feet below circling aircraft. The memoir noted, "Watching our main guns fire at aircraft was disturbing. These were most powerful naval guns ever built, designed to destroy enemy battleships at 25 miles range. But they were useless against aircraft. Shells couldn't reach altitude where aircraft circled. When shells exploded below them, aircraft didn't even alter course. Our ultimate weapons were irrelevant." Yoshida's memoir described atmosphere on bridge according to the account. He stated, "Officers watched aircraft circling and understood what was coming. No one spoke about chances of survival because everyone knew there were none. Captain Aruga issued orders to prepare for attack with calm voice, as if this were training exercise. Damage control parties positioned themselves. Anti-aircraft crews readied their weapons. We waited for attack we knew would destroy us." The memoir noted that at 12:23 hours, American aircraft began their attack. According to the account, first wave came from our port side, torpedo bombers skimming across water releasing torpedoes from perhaps 1,000 meters distance. Simultaneously, dive bombers attacked from starboard and astern. We were being attacked from 3 directions at once. Our anti-aircraft guns fired at maximum rate, but there were too many aircraft attacking simultaneously from too many directions. We couldn't defend against coordinated attack from multiple vectors. April 7th, 1945, 12:25 hours. Lieutenant Commander Eugene Valencia's combat report from VF-9 Fighter Squadron, filed April 8, 1945, and preserved at archives, described American attack on Yamato from pilot perspective that emphasized tactical coordination and overwhelming numerical superiority. The report stated that Valencia's division attacked Yamato at 12:25 hours as part of first strike wave. According to the report, Valencia's fighters strafed Yamato's superstructure, suppressing anti-aircraft guns while torpedo bombers made their attack runs. The report noted, "Japanese anti-aircraft fire was intense but uncoordinated. They were firing at everything simultaneously rather than concentrating on specific threats. Our numerical superiority overwhelmed their defenses." Valencia's report documented that torpedo bombers achieved multiple hits according to his observation. The report stated, "Observed at least 4 torpedoes hit Yamato's port side within 2 minutes. Each torpedo created massive water column eruption alongside ship. Ship began listing to port immediately, indicating serious flooding. Damage control was dealing with multiple breaches simultaneously, something Japanese couldn't contain given extent of damage." The report included tactical assessment according to archives. Valencia stated, "Attacking Yamato was easier than expected despite ship's reputation. Her main battery couldn't engage aircraft effectively. Guns couldn't elevate enough and fired too slowly. Her anti-aircraft guns were numerous, but couldn't concentrate fire effectively when attacked from multiple directions simultaneously. Most significantly, Japanese had no fighter cover. We could attack without interference from Japanese aircraft. Target was defenseless against coordinated carrier air attack. April 7th, 1945. 12:40 hours. Ensign Yoshida's memoir described experiencing American torpedo and bomb hits from perspective of someone on Yamato's signal bridge watching ship die around him. According to the memoir, first torpedo hit Yamato at 12:37 hours, striking port side amidships. The memoir stated, "Entire ship shuddered from impact. I could feel explosion through deck plating beneath my feet. Ship listed to port immediately, perhaps 5 degrees initially. I knew that hit had caused serious flooding. Single torpedo shouldn't cause that much list on ship as large as Yamato." But we'd been hit by multiple torpedoes almost simultaneously. Damage control was fighting flooding in multiple compartments. The memoir documented that bombs hit Yamato's deck, creating fires that damage control couldn't contain. According to the account, I watched bombs falling from dive bombers overhead. They looked small until they were close. Then they grew suddenly large and impacted with tremendous force. One bomb hit near number 2 turret. Explosion penetrated deck and started fires below. Smoke began pouring from openings in deck. I could smell burning oil and cordite. I could hear secondary explosions as fires reached ammunition. Yoshida's memoir described that list to port worsened progressively. The memoir stated, "By 12:45 hours, Yamato was listing perhaps 15 degrees to port. Ship was struggling to maintain headway. Helm became sluggish as flooding affected steering gear. More torpedoes hit starboard side. Damage control was trying to counterflood to reduce port list, but couldn't keep pace with flooding from continuous torpedo hits. We were taking on water faster than pumps could remove it." Most significantly, the memoir described moment when Yoshida understood Yamato was doomed. According to the account, at approximately 12:50 hours, I observed that list had reached 20 degrees. Ship's movements became erratic. She was responding poorly to helm. I looked at damage control board and saw red lights indicating flooding in multiple compartments that couldn't be sealed. I realized then that Yamato was sinking. We had perhaps minutes remaining. I needed to decide whether to stay at my post or attempt to survive. April 7th, 1945, 1300 hours. Lieutenant, junior grade, Thomas Stetson's combat report from VT-9 Torpedo Squadron documented final torpedo hits that caused Yamato to capsize. The report stated that Stetson's division made torpedo run on Yamato at 12:58 hours. According to the report, Yamato was already listing heavily to port and moving slowly, suggesting serious damage. The report noted, target presented favorable attack profile due to list exposing more of hull. Released torpedo at 800 yards from starboard side. Observed hit just forward of bridge. Explosion created massive water column. Ship's list increased dramatically following hit from perhaps 20 degrees to 30 degrees in less than 1 minute. The report documented that Yamato capsized at 13:02 hours, according to Stetson's observation. The report stated, ship rolled rapidly to port. Capsizing accelerated suddenly. Ship went from 30 degrees list to complete rollover in perhaps 15 seconds. As ship inverted, I observed massive explosions, likely ammunition magazines detonating as they were submerged. Explosion created mushroom cloud rising perhaps 2,000 feet. Ship disappeared beneath water, leaving only debris field and survivors floating in oil-covered water. Stetson's report included assessment according to archives. He stated, Yamato's destruction required sustained attack by multiple waves, but outcome was inevitable from first torpedo hit. Ship was too large to maneuver effectively, too slow to evade torpedoes. Anti-aircraft defenses couldn't handle coordinated attacks from multiple vectors. Once flooding began, ship's fate was sealed because damage control couldn't contain flooding from multiple breaches while under continuous attack. April 7, 1945, 13:02 hours. Ensign Yoshida's memoir described escaping from Yamato as ship capsized with detail that captured chaos and terror of final moments. According to the memoir, Yoshida was still on signal bridge when Yamato's list reached 30 degrees at approximately 1300 hours. The memoir stated, "I knew ship was about to capsize.
I could feel it in the way deck was tilting beneath me. I heard captain ordering abandon ship over communication system, but I was already moving towards ship's side. Deck was tilting so steeply that walking became impossible. I was sliding down deck toward port side." The memoir documented that Yoshida jumped from ship at approximately 13:01 hours. According to the account, I climbed over railing on starboard side and jumped into water perhaps 30 feet below. I hit water hard and went deep underwater. I struggled to surface wearing heavy uniform and boots. When I surfaced, I swam away from ship as fast as possible, knowing suction from sinking ship could pull me under. Yoshida's memoir described watching Yamato capsize from water. The memoir stated, "I was perhaps 100 meters from ship when she completed rollover.
Ship inverted completely. I could see her bottom briefly before she sank. Then, massive explosion occurred. I later learned this was ammunition magazines detonating. Explosion created enormous pressure wave in water that felt like being punched. I thought explosion might kill me, but somehow I survived." The memoir documented that Yoshida floated in debris field for approximately 2 hours before rescue. According to the account, I found a piece of wooden debris and clung to it. Oil-covered water made breathing difficult. Bodies floated everywhere. Hundreds of my comrades dead from explosions, drowning, or injuries. I counted myself fortunate to be alive, but felt guilty for surviving when so many died. I wondered if I should have stayed with ship like samurai tradition suggested. But survival instinct was stronger than tradition. The memoir stated that destroyer Fuyutsuki rescued Yoshida at approximately 1500 hours. According to the account, destroyer pulled alongside and crew helped survivors aboard. I was one of 276 Yamato crew members rescued. Over 2,400 crew died, approximately 90%. Looking back at where Yamato had sunk, I saw only oil slick and debris. Greatest battleship ever built had disappeared beneath Pacific in 30 minutes. Everything she represented, Japanese naval superiority, battleship supremacy, surface warfare dominance, had sunk with her. April 8, 1945. Meanwhile, at Combined Fleet Headquarters in Tokyo, Admiral Soemu Toyoda, who had ordered Operation Tengo despite knowing it was a suicide mission, received confirmation that Yamato and most of her crew were lost. Toyoda's report to Navy General Staff dated April 9, 1945, preserved in archives and translated post-war, acknowledged Operation Tengo had failed completely while justifying decision to order suicide mission. The report stated, according to translation, Surface Special Attack Force under command of Vice Admiral Ito was attacked by overwhelming American carrier aircraft forces on April 7th at approximately 12:20 hours. Despite courageous resistance by all ships, American numerical superiority proved insurmountable. Battleship Yamato sank at approximately 13:02 hours. Light cruiser Yahagi and 4 destroyers also lost. 4 destroyers returned to base. Casualties total approximately 3,700 officers and men, including Vice Admiral Ito and Rear Admiral Aruga. The report continued according to translation. Operation Tengo did not achieve objective of reaching Okinawa for shore bombardment. However, Operation demonstrated Japanese naval spirit by refusing to preserve ships unused in port. Yamato died fighting as befits Japanese warrior tradition. Crew's sacrifice honors empire and naval service. Most revealing was report's assessment of lessons learned according to translation. The report stated, "American carrier aircraft superiority makes surface ship operations unsustainable without air cover. Surface forces cannot survive against coordinated carrier air attacks."
Future operations must account for American dominance in carrier aviation or risk repeating outcome of Operation Tengo. This assessment, according to post-war analysis, represented tacit admission that Japanese surface fleet could no longer operate effectively against American carrier forces. Yamato's destruction had proven what many Japanese naval officers privately acknowledged but couldn't state openly. Battleship era was over, and Japan had built its greatest battleship for war that no longer existed. April 1945. U.S. Navy intelligence assessment dated April 10, 1945, preserved at National Archives, analyzed Yamato's destruction with conclusions that would influence post-war naval doctrine globally.
The assessment stated that Yamato's sinking demonstrated carrier aircraft's complete dominance over surface ships in modern naval warfare. According to the report, Japanese battleship Yamato, largest and most powerful battleship ever constructed, was sunk by carrier aircraft in coordinated attack, lasting approximately 40 minutes. American losses totaled 10 aircraft from 386 launched, acceptable loss rate for destroying enemy's most valuable surface combatant. The assessment analyzed tactical lessons according to archives. The report stated, "Coordinated attacks from multiple directions simultaneously overwhelmed Japanese anti-aircraft defenses. Torpedo hits from port and starboard sides prevented effective damage control by forcing Japanese to fight flooding on both sides simultaneously. Dive bombing suppressed anti-aircraft guns, allowing torpedo bombers to make attack runs with minimal interference. Japanese had no effective defense against this tactical approach. Most significantly, the assessment addressed strategic implications according to archives. The report stated, Yamato's destruction proves that heavily armored battleships cannot survive against coordinated carrier air attacks regardless of armor thickness or gun power. Battleship's main battery, most powerful naval guns ever constructed, was useless against aircraft. Her armor, thickest ever mounted on warship, couldn't stop torpedoes striking below waterline or bombs penetrating deck. Her size, intended to intimidate enemies, made her easy target that couldn't maneuver quickly enough to evade attacks. The assessment concluded, according to archives, Yamato's death marks end of battleship era. Future naval warfare will be decided by carrier aircraft, not surface ships. Nations continuing to build battleships are investing in obsolete weapons. American naval doctrine correctly emphasized carriers over battleships. Yamato's destruction validates this doctrinal choice and demonstrates that nations clinging to battleship doctrine will lose to nations embracing carrier aviation. 1985, Tokyo. Ensign Mitsuru Yoshida's memoir, Requiem for Battleship Yamato, published in 1985, 40 years after battle, provided survivors' perspective on Yamato's final voyage and what her destruction meant for understanding naval warfare evolution. The memoir's introduction stated, according to published text, "I write this memoir 40 years after Yamato's sinking to honor comrades who died and to explain what Yamato's death meant. Many accounts describe Yamato's destruction as heroic last stand by Japanese warriors. This is partial truth. Yes, we fought courageously, but Yamato's death proved more than Japanese courage. It proved that Japanese naval strategy was obsolete before we finished building her." The memoir analyzed Yamato's fundamental design flaw according to published account. Yoshida stated, Yamato was designed to fight surface battles against enemy battleships. Her guns could destroy any battleship at ranges exceeding 20 miles. Her armor could withstand shells from any enemy battleship. She was perfect weapon for naval warfare as it existed before Pearl Harbor, but Pearl Harbor changed everything. Japanese carrier aircraft sank American battleships before American surface ships could fight back. We proved that carriers dominated battleships, yet we continued building battleships as if carriers hadn't made them obsolete. Most significantly, the memoir addressed psychological aspect of serving on obsolete weapon, according to published text. Yoshida stated, "We knew intellectually that carriers had made battleships obsolete. We had used carriers devastatingly at Pearl Harbor. But emotionally, we couldn't accept that Yamato, representing pinnacle of Japanese naval engineering, was obsolete before completion. We wanted to believe battleships still mattered. We wanted to believe surface gunnery skills we'd perfected would be decisive. We wanted to believe size and armor made Yamato invincible." April 7, 1945, shattered these illusions. Yamato's guns couldn't hit aircraft, her armor couldn't stop torpedoes, her size made her easy target. Everything we believed about her superiority was wrong. The memoir's conclusion stated, according to published account, Yamato's death taught lesson Japan learned too late. Embracing obsolete strategy because it reflects traditional values leads to defeat against enemies who understand current warfare reality. We built ultimate battleship in era when carriers ruled seas. We perfected obsolete warfare while enemies perfected modern warfare. Yamato's 2,498 dead paid price for this strategic blindness. Their deaths should remind future generations that military power comes from understanding current warfare reality, not from perfecting weapons for wars that ended. Historical analysis of Yamato's design, construction, and destruction revealed that her fate was determined by strategic decisions made years before her final battle. Resource analysis documented that Yamato's construction consumed resources equivalent to building multiple aircraft carriers. According to Japanese naval records, Yamato required 72,000 tons of steel, 5 years design work by Japan's best naval architects, 3 years construction at Kura Naval Arsenal, secret construction requiring elaborate security hiding ship's size and capabilities, costs exceeding any previous Japanese warship by factor of 3. Strategic analysis showed these resources could have produced 4 to 5 fleet carriers, according to naval construction experts. 4 additional carriers with trained air groups would have significantly strengthened Japanese carrier forces at Midway and subsequent battles. This represented strategic misallocation of scarce resources toward obsolete weapons rather than modern ones. More significantly, Yamato's existence created operational liabilities according to tactical analysis. Her size and value made Japanese reluctant to risk her in combat. She spent most of war at anchor in safe harbors rather than engaging enemies because Japanese leadership feared losing their greatest battleship. This meant resources invested in Yamato produced minimal return because she rarely fought. When finally committed to battle in suicide mission, her destruction validated every criticism about battleships being obsolete. The broader lesson, according to military historians, was that Yamato represented military organization continuing to fight previous war rather than adapting to current warfare reality. Japan had pioneered carrier aviation and used it devastatingly at Pearl Harbor. Yet, Japanese Navy continued building battleships and training for surface gunnery duels that would never occur. This institutional resistance to accepting strategic change, despite evidence of its necessity, led directly to Yamato's useless death and Japan's naval defeat. Post-war naval development showed all major navies learned Yamato's lesson according to construction records. No nation built new battleships after 1945. All major navies emphasized carriers and naval aviation. American Iowa-class battleships were retained post-war, but primarily for shore bombardment and cruise missile platforms, missions requiring long-range guns rather than surface warfare they were designed for. Even this limited battleship role ended by 1990s when last battleships were retired. Yamato's wreck, discovered in 1985 at depth of 1,120 feet, confirmed details of her destruction according to underwater surveys. Surveys showed extensive torpedo damage on both sides of hull, consistent with coordinated attacks from multiple directions. Survey found main battery turrets separated from hull during sinking, consistent with magazine explosion accounts from survivors. Survey revealed that ship broke apart during sinking from structural failure caused by magazine explosions, explaining why so few crew survived. Yamato's final battle revealed fundamental truths about military strategy, technological change, and institutional resistance to accepting obsolescence that remain relevant for understanding military evolution. First truth: perfecting obsolete weapons doesn't overcome their obsolescence. Yamato was perfect battleship, largest guns, thickest armor, most advanced fire control. But perfection in obsolete warfare type was worthless against enemies using modern warfare. No amount of engineering excellence could make battleships competitive against carrier aircraft once carriers dominated naval warfare. Second truth: emotional attachment to traditional weapons prevents rational adaptation. Japanese Navy understood intellectually that carriers had made battleships obsolete. They had proven it at Pearl Harbor. But emotional attachment to battleship tradition and gunnery culture prevented accepting this truth operationally. They continued building battleships because abandoning them meant abandoning identity and tradition. This emotional resistance to change led to strategic defeat. Third truth: resources invested in obsolete weapons are resources denied to modern ones. Every ton of steel, every hour of labor, every yen invested in Yamato was resource not invested in carriers and aircraft. Japan's limited industrial capacity meant every obsolete battleship built was multiple carriers not built. This misallocation of scarce resources toward obsolete weapons weakened Japan's position in warfare type that actually mattered. Fourth truth: suicide missions using obsolete weapons compound failure with tragedy. Operation Tengo was suicide mission ordered because Japanese leadership couldn't accept that Yamato had no useful role. Ordering 2,700 sailors to die using obsolete weapon didn't demonstrate courage. It demonstrated strategic bankruptcy. Yamato's crew died heroically, but their deaths proved their sacrifice served no strategic purpose beyond psychological need to use their ship before surrendering her. Fifth truth: learning lessons from own innovations requires intellectual honesty. Japan pioneered carrier aviation and used it devastatingly. Yet Japan continued building battleships after demonstrating carriers' superiority. This failure to learn from own innovations, to accept implications of their own tactical successes, reflected intellectual dishonesty about warfare evolution. Nations that innovate but refuse to accept their innovations' implications will lose to enemies who embrace same innovations completely. Yamato's death on April 7, 1945, marked end of battleship era that had dominated naval warfare for centuries. From Age of Sail through World War I, naval supremacy meant possessing largest guns on most heavily armored ships. Battleships represented ultimate expression of this philosophy. But carrier aircraft had ended this era at Pearl Harbor when Japanese carrier planes sank American battleships before American surface ships could respond. Yamato was built for war that ended before she was completed. Her construction represented Japan's institutional refusal to accept that they had pioneered weapons revolution that made their traditional naval power obsolete. Ensign Yoshida's 40-year journey from survivor to memoirist reflected broader Japanese process of accepting Yamato's meaning. Initially, Yamato's death was portrayed as heroic sacrifice, demonstrating Japanese warrior spirit. Only decades later could survivors like Yoshida acknowledge uncomfortable truth. Yamato's death was strategic failure, demonstrating Japan's inability to adapt to warfare evolution their own innovations had created. This acknowledgement required intellectual courage to admit that comrades died using obsolete weapons in pursuit of obsolete strategy, serving no purpose beyond satisfying psychological need to fight rather than surrender unused. The mathematical equation was brutal and undeniable. 386 American aircraft destroyed Battleship Yamato plus 9 escorts, while losing only 10 aircraft. This 38-to-1 kill ratio proved carrier aircraft could destroy surface fleets at costs, making surface warfare obsolete. No amount of armor, no caliber of guns, no tonnage of displacement could protect surface ships from coordinated carrier air attacks. Yamato's massive 18.1-inch guns, most powerful naval weapons ever mounted, were irrelevant against aircraft they couldn't hit. A 26-inch armor belt, thickest ever installed, couldn't stop torpedoes striking below waterline. Her 72,000-ton displacement, largest warship ever, made her unmaneuverable target rather than intimidating weapon. American pilots attacking Yamato described battle as disturbingly easy in after-action reports, according to archives. Despite facing most heavily defended target in Japanese Navy, coordinated attacks from multiple carriers overwhelmed defenses through numerical superiority and tactical sophistication Japanese couldn't counter. This ease of victory demonstrated how completely carrier aircraft dominated battleships in modern naval warfare. Yamato represented Japan's finest naval engineering and most experienced crew, yet she was destroyed in 40 minutes by weapon systems she had no effective defense against. The lesson transcended specific ships and battles, according to military historians. Yamato's fate demonstrated that military power comes from embracing current warfare reality rather than perfecting weapons for previous wars. Japan had proven at Pearl Harbor that carriers dominated battleships, yet they continued building battleships because abandoning them meant acknowledging their traditional naval power was obsolete. This emotional attachment to traditional weapons, despite evidence of their obsolescence, led to strategic defeat as resources were invested in weapons that couldn't compete against modern alternatives. 40 years after Yamato's sinking, Mitsuru Yoshida published memoir explaining what 2,498 deaths taught about military strategy evolution. According to his published conclusion, Yamato died proving that Japanese naval strategy was obsolete. We built ultimate battleship for naval warfare that ended at Pearl Harbor. American carriers demonstrated that aircraft could sink any surface ship. We learned this lesson at Pearl Harbor when we used carriers devastatingly. But we refused to accept implications of our own innovation. We continued building battleships and training for surface warfare that would never occur. Yamato's death was an inevitable consequence of strategic denial. Her 2,498 dead paid price for Japan's refusal to accept that warfare had evolved beyond battleships. This lesson should warn future military leaders: embrace warfare evolution or die fighting obsolete battles with obsolete weapons. When Yamato fired her last shell, massive 3,200-pound projectile launched with force that shook entire ship. The shell exploded harmlessly in empty ocean far below American aircraft circling at altitude Yamato's guns couldn't reach. That futile shot represented perfect metaphor for her entire existence. Most powerful naval gun ever built, firing uselessly at targets it couldn't hit because it was designed for warfare that no longer existed. And in that moment of useless fury, Yamato and everyone aboard her realized the Pacific War had been lost, not when Yamato sank, but when Japanese leadership had decided to build her, committing scarce resources to obsolete weapons rather than embracing carrier revolution Japan itself had pioneered.